The Amazing Race specialists Kyle and McKenna are back for our last time with this season of The Amazing Race. We are talking the final 2 episodes because we had this 2-episode finale on Wednesday and Thursday. So now we are here Friday talking to you guys about these 2 episodes. Kyle, we will obviously deep dive into these, but overall thoughts on these 2 episodes that you saw?
I enjoyed them. I thought that they were fun episodes. I think that it was a satisfying conclusion to the season, a satisfying result. There was some not so fun stuff in there that we will talk about, but overall, I really liked how it capped off this season.
Yeah. All right, well, let's dive right into it. They have to fly from France to Portugal, and this is where they get the valet roulette twist. They have to drive themselves to their next destination, and you either got an automatic or a manual. And for some people, like Carson and Jack, if they got a manual, that meant Carson had to drive, but Carson is also the better navigator. So they really were hoping to get an automatic, which luckily they did, along with Alyssa and Josiah, who wanted an automatic so other people didn't have an automatic. And then Jonathan and Anna, Han and Holden got a manual, and a manual was left on the board. And I was surprised that the one with the most options actually did not get picked. I don't know statistics and probability, but feel like it was higher you chose a manual than an automatic.
It was higher for sure. And, maybe it's who did you? I mean, Carson and Jack, they got an automatic.
Yeah. And Alyssa and Josiah.
Yeah, I don't think it affected things too much.
No.
This whole twist, though, I thought was silly. This ballet roulette. It didn't end up mattering for anything.
Twist to be in the final leg that didn't. Well, not final leg, but the penultimate leg. To not impact the game too much.
Yeah, so I was glad it didn't impact the game much. When I first saw it, I was like, is somebody gonna get screwed because of this or some way or another? But they didn't. So
yeah, that
was fine.
And then they got a map, but not much else to try and get to their destination. And so once they got their route info, and once they got to their destination, they had to paddle a boat to roll a barrel up a hill. And oh my gosh, never in my days would I want to do this. And the Amazing Race is sick and twisted, where they always want people to roll wine barrels. And
yes, they do.
I guess would go to a vineyard to prep for the Amazing Race. Constantly rolling wine barrels or whiskey barrels. I don't know. I'd go find some alcohol place and be like, you got a barrel so I can practice rolling this?
Barrel, I hadn't ever thought of it, but you're right. Now that I think of it, it comes up every season. Something to do with barrels. This looks like a fun challenge to me. I'm sure it would be miserable in practice, but
Carson was bleeding all over the barrel.
Oh man, yeah, that was. I'm sure that was rough because it was a big hill. I mean, it took them a long time.
Yeah. And so Carson and Jack got there first, and on their way back down, they see Han and Holden, and on their way back down, they see Alyssa and Josiah, and on their way back down, they see Anna and Jonathan. So everyone kind of has a decent lead on the other teams moving forward. And then we get to the roadblock of who has a steady hand. I think I have a decent steady hand, but I feel like it is completely different. The clue seems not what I would say for archery. It's whose aim is on point would be something that I would go for archery. I guess you do have to have a steady hand, but that would not make me believe archery.
I think the roadblocks in this episode and the next episode were a little less leading, then I feel like they have been this season. I feel like the roadblocks, you kind of had an idea, in my opinion, of what it is. Like you're either looking right at it or there's something in the clue that makes it somewhat obvious. But in this one, it was behind the castle wall, so you had no idea what you were going to get into. So I did not do what I said I was going to do. I did not go back and check how many roadblocks each of us have done. But at this point, I want to say we're fairly even. So I'll take this one. Because if not for no other reason, it just looks awesome. Like I would want to do this.
Yeah. And we also got hit with, like, right at the end, that Holden, Jonathan, and Carson had to do that, or Alyssa, Holden, and Jonathan. So 3 of them had to do it and didn't have a choice in the matter. But you had to have 7 tries to hit 3 bullseyes, and the bullseyes were moving. And I felt this was rather simple. This didn't seem that taxing or that, like, hard to do once you kind of got over the armor is bulky aspect of
it. The targets were fairly big, especially in comparison to the ninja challenge from earlier this season that it was impossible. Nobody did it. This one, in comparison, seems so much easier.
Yeah, for sure. Because Carson got it on his first try, and then the other guys got it within 4 tries, according to the editing. When they introduced this roadblock, who has a steady hand, and they had, like, people fighting, I thought it would be like you had to, like, bring mead or something on a tray through these, like, fighters, and you're having to, like, navigate it with a steady hand. I didn't realize it would be just archery, and then Carson was so excited. He was like, maybe it's going to be archery, and what do you know? There it is.
Yeah, that was a crazy guess. It was crazy.
From there, they had to go to the train station, take a train to a different station where they would then get a tile. So Carson and Jack, Han, and Holden wound up on the same train together, but Alyssa and Josiah got lost a little bit and then got rear-ended.
Not the first accident, or not the only accident that we had in this finale. This was an interesting sequence because Carson and Jack had a big-ish lead, and then Han and Holden come in as the doors are about to
closing,
which is, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, you had a big lead and you just lost it. And then Alyssa and Josiah got lost in the parking lot. Like they couldn't figure out where to go. And then, like you said, they got rear-ended and then
out of it. And it was.
And that was kind of their race right there.
And we kind of haven't talked much about Jonathan and Anna. So let's do it.
Let's do it.
Because here is where they catch up from their, like, time issues here. Jonathan was so upset during the archery. He was, like, not in it. He was like, why are we even competing? Because I know we're last. And Anna's just like, this is where we're supposed to race for fun. When you're in the back of the pack, you're last. That's when you race for fun. Look at the scenery around you. Take it all in. That's when you almost do your best racing anyway. And then they catch up to Alyssa and Josiah, and it's like, I feel like you didn't deserve this because
they did
the entire time. And, like, he complained about her driving, took over the papers, the whole cutting in line.
Yeah, that was it.
Same tickets. I just, the difference between these 2 episodes, once he knew he was racing for $1 million confirmed, like, he was a different person. Completely.
I don't know, because in the next episode, I mean, he still had a couple of moments, but, like, he was more gracious And he was
when she
more just
did that
fine.
roadblock, he was like, "Oh my gosh, you did great, sweetie."
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know like what exactly his deal is. Like I
mhm,
did read apparently after the show he was diagnosed with autism. So
okay.
he's on the spectrum, and he
Mhm,
probably didn't know that at the time. So like he may be confused with like how he's behaving, with still no
mhm.
excuse to
Yeah, and,
talk
like,
to
irregular
anyone that way.
emotions and things like that, yep.
Yeah. So, but perhaps that provides a little bit of an
Mhm.
explanation, but it's still no excuse, and it was still difficult to watch, and I have to
Yeah,
deal with that in this episode and this whole season.
wow. Yeah, that's a heavy thing to to deal with, and having to, like, almost have your worst moments, like, shown
Right.
on TV too, because, like, you can tell that he cares for her when they did the roadblock later on,
Yeah.
um, but it's just hard to watch when he doesn't, not that when he doesn't care about her, but when he's, like, in his own head.
Right. Because I'm sure he was struggling himself as well.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it was interesting to watch, that's for sure.
So once they get to the second train station, they have to find the man selling tiles. And they get a clue on the back of their tile, and they have to complete a tile mosaic puzzle. And
Hmm.
then once they complete the puzzle, uh, lay the tile on the wall. And I would have loved to do this puzzle. I think this puzzle would have been like
Hmm.
easy peasy for me. I know other people were having a little bit of trouble with like some of the finer details in it, but like it's essentially a jigsaw, but like a
Hmm.
jigsaw like this is something that I like can picture really easy and put together.
Hmm.
So this would have been like a great final thing for me to do before the pit stop.
Yeah, I really liked this challenge. I thought that this was super
Mhm.
cool. And it was almost the perfect challenge because it combined smarts, puzzle ability, but it also combined some skills, getting it up
Mhm.
onto the wall
And
in a
like some
timely manner.
meticulous, like,
Yeah. So
yeah.
it was like if you're smart, okay, you have an advantage here, but maybe you would be a little
Mhm.
slower at putting it up on the wall, vice versa. So this was a great challenge.
Um, and funnily enough, Carson's brother is a tiler, and they just did his bathroom. So he was like, "Oh, I could do this," and put the tiles on the wall, no problem. Han and Holden had like some slight issues with one of the
Yeah.
rock pieces being wrong, and I don't think they even realized that they fixed it when they were like, "Wait, these pieces go here. What's wrong?" And I don't think they even realized that they like turned the piece a
Mhm.
different way or whatever and fixed the puzzle. They were like, "I don't know, let's just check it," and it was correct. Um, and so Carson and Jack, Han and Holden check into the pit stop. Carson and Jack win business class for the flight back, but it seemed
Yeah.
like all of them got business class for the flight back, but okay. And then we leave off with this episode. Alyssa and Josiah are now putting the pieces together. So are Jonathan and Anna. Jonathan and Anna are ahead by
Mhm.
a few rows, putting the tiles on the wall, and then Jonathan drops a tile.
Yes. Dun
And
dun
that's
dun.
where we leave off.
Cliffhanger.
I was so annoyed.
It was pretty annoying, but they really like yada yada that in the second half. The
Mhm.
episode two. I mean, Alyssa and Josiah were eliminated like a minute into the episode.
Yeah.
It was immediate. I like the way that they handled it though, where it's like you dropped it, you now have to arrange those pieces on the
Mhm.
wall in the way that they go. So it's like they're not disqualified, they don't get a penalty, but you made a mistake and now you need to put your own little mini puzzle together and put
Yeah.
it up on that wall now.
But I almost wish they had a penalty because I wanted Alyssa and Josiah to get to the
Yeah.
final leg.
Yeah.
So that is basically the start of this second episode of the race. where they put together this one tile that they broke, and it almost seems like Alyssa and Josiah can catch up somewhat
Yeah.
because they kind of got a little bit lost with the bridge situation, but when they weren't showing them like kind of near each other, I was like, there's no way that they're catching up. And it's just sad because Jonathan and Anna, well, Jonathan was so dejected the entire time during the race, and Alyssa and Josiah are just so happy to be here and happy to be with each other that it's like it's just sad for them to be eliminated in fourth place here.
It is. They ran a more consistent race. Like, I think they were the second most consistent team this whole race. You know, they were steadily up at the top, and
like
so
no less than 4 or 5.
Right. I mean, even Carson and Jack were second to last one leg. So it's like Alyssa and Josiah were debatably the most consistent team this whole season, and for them to not make it to the final leg did feel a little wrong, especially when they kind of got screwed by an equalizer ish on the train. So that was a tough elimination.
So now we head on into the official final leg of the race. And we are going to Miami, everyone. I was happy that we didn't get a confessional from anybody saying, I used to live in Miami, or like, I frequent Miami every summer or something like that, where it's like, because we've had that before where it's like, oh, I lived in LA for 3 years. I know exactly how to get everywhere. So we've had that kind of thing before. So I was just happy that now I didn't look up if anybody did anything in Miami before this, but we just didn't get a confessional about it. So I just wanted to, I noted the times, even though they were equalized on the flight and they should be equalized for the final leg. But Jack and Carson finished about an hour before Han and Holden, who only finished about 10 minutes before Jonathan and Anna.
Wow.
So it was 11:51, 12:42, and 12:53.
Wow.
So I don't know, unless I'm tripping, and it was 11.
That's surprising because it felt like Carson and Jack were closer to each other, and
with Han and Holden.
Right, yeah, with Han and Holden, yeah, and then Jonathan and Anna were further behind. That's interesting, yeah. Because I never look at the times because I know that you're always gonna say. I see them, but I don't really like.
Yeah, and I oftentimes have to go back and be like, oh, I forgot that. All right.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, we're leaving in third. Rip.
Right.
But one thing Jonathan and Anna did that was genius. They printed Miami maps at the airport.
Yeah. That was smart. Yeah.
And I think had they not gotten that little lost turnaround situation, they could have been in first or like right on Carson and Jack's tails, because they got to the one of the scramble places first, and then they messed up going to the second place.
Yeah, they did, and then they kind of were hesitant, right? They didn't know which one to go to. And I kind of like this, by the way, this format that they've been doing.
Yeah, so we have the Miami Scramble.
Yes.
Sail, score, and save.
Yeah.
They did this one other time in, I believe it was.
Was it the first hour and a half season with the brothers and the Beards and Corey and Rob? Were they in Seattle?
I think they also did it in Nashville.
Did they also do it in Nashville?
Because I think I remember Caroline and Jen were at one of the we're at one of the scramble locations.
Yeah.
But I I like this also because then you never know where you are, your position in the race.
Right.
But they made it
in this instance. They
in
all
this
wait.
instance, you do.
They all just followed each other. Yeah.
Because they weren't like equidistant enough
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
like they were kind of all in like a line or that kind of thing. So everyone did save first because that was the closest location. This was a route info where they both competed. So you had a victim in the water and you had to use a jet ski and a rescue board to save them. One person was the operator, one person was the crew. So Jonathan was the crew, Anna was the operator, and she jumps on the jet ski before they even launch. And they're like, this is kind of hard. And she's like, I'm sorry, I need to. And they're like, no, but you really need to get off. Yeah. And then what was funny is Jack was the crew and not Carson. And Jack was like, these noodles had to get the dummy on board. And Carson is like pulling Jack on the board so Jack can pull the dummy on the board.
Yeah.
And then Han and Holden just felt like they had no issues and just went in and did the task. Then they all went to soar, except for Jonathan and Anna wanted to go to sail first. And then there was some issue with reading the map. And they were like, well, why don't we go back to soar? I can see it on the map. So Carson and Jack then go from second to first. And they when they go to soar, which is a hydro flight for 60 seconds. And it's like a surfboard, skateboard attached to your feet using the water as propulsion to stand up. And dude,
this was pretty awesome.
This.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be fun to do.
Yeah.
But not for the Amazing Race. And oof, if I had to do this, I don't know. We might be there for a little bit.
Yeah, I guess I would do it.
My balance isn't bad, so like there's that, but I'm not a strong swimmer. I can swim, and I'm not going to drown. But I feel like me and the water are on good terms, but we're not besties.
Yeah, this one, if you were not besties with water, you kind of struggled. But even if you were, I mean, Han, we know, is a surfer, so this is kind of the third balancing challenge in water we've had this season.
Yep.
And she was struggling with it also. So this
like,
just looked...
if I just breathed earlier, I would have gotten this. And I was like, why weren't you breathing?
Great question. But this just looked like a straight up difficult challenge. Like if you didn't have any experience with this at all, it took you a little while to get the hang of it. It took all of them a few tries. It took Anna 21 tries.
Yep.
But they all had their struggles with it at first.
Anna also has this big fear of the ocean.
Yes.
And when Carson and Jack also read it, they thought it was heights as well, so they put Jack to do it.
Yeah.
And Anna did it because she thought it was also heights, because Jonathan doesn't do heights. So when it wasn't that, both of them were like, oh crap. And then Anna really was not doing too well because she now was thrust into facing her fears.
Yeah, this was a tough challenge for her to do. I mean, I can't imagine if you're afraid of the ocean, you basically have to jetpack on water and balance, and then you just fall straight in. You could fall in any sorts of positions. You could fall head first. I mean, that's uncomfortable for anybody.
When she was like launching herself, she sometimes would just like flip out immediately and like
immediately. That was
it too.
Yeah, she ended up doing it, so I don't feel bad laughing. But I think maybe my favorite part of the episode was when the instructor was like, "This is the one," and then she just comes up and falls immediately. Oh, she
She
struggled with this
struggled
one, but
hard.
it was amazing that she even did it. But this
Mhm.
is where they obviously lost the race.
The race. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Though I wouldn't say they caught up, but when they got to sail, they were
Mhm,
at least starting when Han and Holden were still going as
mhm,
well. So like they didn't catch up, but they at least, could see other teams, and that's a good like mental place because then they
yeah.
get to the puzzle and it's like, oh, Han and Holden are still on the puzzle. Maybe it's tricky. So
Mhm.
it's almost like you're not out of it, but you're out of it.
Yeah, you're out of it. So I guess I'll say that, like, this episode, while I enjoyed it, and I do think that all three of these teams were strong and somewhat evenly matched, this was fairly obvious, I guess, in my opinion, what would like Carson and Jack were going to win because they were always out in front, like
Mhm.
this whole episode. And I said that I thought that this was theirs to lose, and they
Mhm.
obviously go on to win. And so when it was
Also,
like they
Mr.
left,
Han and Holden was getting boot in fourth. Like they
yeah,
would
yeah,
be fourth
John and Holden
place.
finishing second. That was the crazy part of the episode. That was the kind of the highlight or the surprise
Mhm.
was Han and Holden are second place on this season. Hey, I was wrong, man. they they were they were really strong and they really rallied through this season.
Mhm.
But yeah, Carson and Jack, it was like they left the puzzle, they killed the puzzle, and then it was like, well, who's gonna come in second? I think was more of like the
Yeah.
intrigue at a certain point. Um,
Um, so Carson and Jack leave Soar and go into sail, and they
mhm,
have this weird little dinghy that everyone that they kind of had to observe the people in the water to try and
mhm,
see what to do with it. And they kind of had to like rock back and forth to propel it, use the rudder to help go.
mhm.
But there was this little like paddle thing, and everyone brute forced it. And I
Yeah.
think it's easier to like maneuver in this boat. Everyone was singles except for the racing teams. They were
Mhm.
doubles. So like it's hard to move the mast and like switch sides and bounce and
Yeah.
do all that thing with another person in the boat.
Yeah, it was hard to coordinate. And then everybody was like, oh, that thing is so far out there. It felt like every team, once they went, they were like, oh, wow, that's so far.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was like
They
once
had
they
to
started, it didn't feel like,
circumnavigate an island.
yeah, yeah, that's a long way out there. And it was one of those where it was like, once a team got there, it was like they can't catch up quickly.
Yeah,
It was like everybody kind of has to
it
do
was like the same
the
amount of
same amount of
time.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like this course will take everyone 20 minutes or
Yeah.
whatever.
So yeah, this was
Not
not a
20
task
minutes,
that you
but
could
like
catch up and blow by somebody.
exactly. So Carson and Jack yet again leaving in first, Han and Holden in second, Jonathan and Anna in third.
Mhm.
But Jack did know things about sailboats, and so did Han.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
But
you never
it
know what
helped
people are
neither
gonna
of
know
them.
about. Yeah.
It helped neither of them.
No.
So once they got uh done with this task, at all three tasks, they were collecting pieces that
Yeah.
slid into each other. And it read calle, which is street, and then it had a bunch of dots on it. And they had to kind of figure out that it was 8 dots, calle ocho, and it's this place where people play dominoes, and it looked kind of like a domino.
Mhm.
And so they had to navigate there. And Carson and Jack hit a little bit of traffic going there, but Han and Holden hit a car.
They did hit a car. Han just took her eyes off the road for a second, and that's all it takes sometimes, unfortunately.
Luckily, Holden knows
Luckily,
Spanish.
Holden, yeah. So what was it? Han knew French, right? And then
Yeah, something like
Holden knew Spanish. I can't remember if we knew that or not because I didn't. I was like, Holden knows Spanish?
Yes,
What?
I think he used it in some other leg.
Yeah. It sounded a little familiar, but I had forgotten about it. But yeah, the guy, he didn't seem to care.
Like,
He didn't care.
you're
I
good.
could see, you
You're
could
racing
see.
for $1 million. Let's
Yeah.
hope you use that $1 million to help pay for my
Yeah. Which, whatever they got for second place, I'm sure could cover the damages.
Yeah, right.
One scene that I really liked in this episode was
Mhm.
Carson and Jack asking that guy about the Calle Ocho. They were
Mhm.
showing him the thing, and he was like, "Well, Calle is street," so they're like, "Oh, the street," and then he was like, "Oh, and then there's Ocho Street, Calle Ocho," and then they were like, "Oh, eight dots," and then he's like, "Yeah, there's like a Domino Park down there."
It
And they're
looks like
"That's what they got a Domino."
Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
And then so when they got to Calle Ocho, they got another clue that led them to this film studio where this is our typical Amazing Race finale.
Yes.
Big bad, where you have to remember things from your visits throughout the countries. In this case, you had to remember all of the different twists, and then you had to put together the words Amazing Race, and it had photos from every leg of the race. So Amazing Race has a bunch of A's in it. So which A goes where? Other things were kind of self-explanatory, but like they still had just a bunch of random red and yellow pieces that they had to try and fit the faces with pictures on. So it was kind of a daunting puzzle where we saw Jack and Carson and Han and Holden kind of just go like, wait a second, like how best do we approach this? Han was really like, what do I do? Stumped for a second of like, what is the best way to attack this puzzle?
Yeah, this there were a couple different components to this puzzle that you had to figure out the order of the legs, which twists were in each leg, and then finally put the words together. And I really enjoyed watching Carson and Jack kind of explain their thought process, and like they weren't stressed, like they were thinking through it. And
I think
they
Jack
did it.
had the idea to lay out the pictures
Yeah,
first to know
do the
what are
pictures
we
first.
spelling, and then now we can spell it and see which pegs on the pictures fit which holes and things like that. So I think
I thought that was a smart way to do it.
What are your thoughts on this kind of, hey, remember all the things that you did challenge?
It's classic Amazing Race. Like this is always the final challenge. I thought that this one was a little easier than it's been before because of the twists. That's, I think, way easier for them to remember than like they've done flags before. That can be hard to remember. But you maybe would remember the order that you encountered the twists and the order of the countries. Like if you put those two together, I feel like you could get the answer a little easier than you've been able to in the past.
Yeah, I do think having the Amazing Race being like the puzzle aspect of it was easier, and then you do remember the legs and like some of the imagery, so the pictures weren't that bad. And I think overall it was an easier task, but just kind of navigating putting those puzzle pieces of the letters together is also a little like tough, because we saw Han and Holden being like 100 pieces. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That could be a lot.
Though, and so Jonathan and Anna do encounter Han and Holden in the puzzle. So they did hear them trying to figure out the puzzle. We don't know how far along they were when this happened. But Carson and Jack presumably get a little lost, and I don't know like how it was, like how actually they were far away from Han and Holden, where it was something that Han and Holden could pass them in at all, but they got a little lost, found it, and they are the winners of this season of The Amazing Race. Called it episode 1. Thank you. And second place, Han and Holden. Third place, Jonathan and Anna. One of my favorite things about the finale is always seeing all of the teams and everyone running in to like claim the crown or their second or third place. That's always like my favorite ending. I just love that they have all the teams there.
It is really cool.
First boot to last. So.
Yeah. Because I don't know what they do with these teams once they lose. Like, I assume they go home and then they just bring them out.
I think I think they used to do a trip of some kind. But I don't know since COVID that they are doing that, or they're just sending them home and saying like, you're going to need to fly back out to here at this date.
Yeah. I do wonder how they do that, but hey, in my opinion, it's worth it. They did it at the Marlins Stadium. Shout out to David Sampson. But yeah, it was really cool. I was obviously happy for Jack and Carson. They were a fairly dominant team this whole season. Yeah, you called it. They were certainly, like a strong team right off the bat, and they just showed resilience even when they were towards the bottom of the pack. They rose right back up. So this was more than deserving of a win.
For sure. All right, Kyle, overall thoughts on this season. Where does it rank in a high, mid, low feeling for you?
I'd say it's probably in the mid to high mid. I think it's better than last season. I really did not like last season, but I don't think it was as good as the season before with the brothers and Rob and Corey. I think that's probably my favorite season since I can remember. So this is in between those two of the 90-minute episode era of The Amazing Race. It goes in the middle, but it is way closer to number one than it is to the last season. But it was a lot of fun, and obviously a lot of fun to talk about. We had some, some
good moments,
some interesting characters.
Yeah, as I saw them, I was just like, oh. Like, I remember when we were talking about the woman who was afraid of stairs.
Those guys who got eliminated the first episode, they lived like an hour away from me.
That's so sad. Rip. Yeah, I agree. I did really enjoy this season, and it was a good watch and a good ride. So make sure you tune in to Kyle and I in the fall talking The Amazing Race, because we will be back. It's an all Big Brother cast of The Amazing Race. Yes. Maybe we get Blake on.
Oh man, that would be fun.
Maybe I can convince him to watch the premiere and podcast with us.
I'm excited for that. Yeah, because I am a Big Brother fan, so I've been avoiding spoilers. I know they're out there, but we won't
I've seen be talking cast, but that's about it.
Yeah, so this will be unspoiled. But yeah, can't wait for it. It's gonna be great.
All right. Well, we will see you then when The Amazing Race starts back up again. But until then, it has been an amazing season, and toodaloo, everyone.